thought I'll give you a thing. There is an assignment which I was supposed to give, and that assignment is ready. Now, how do I give it to you?
Sir, it's in which form, sir?
It's a word file, and it has got only one question. If you want, I can type the question in the to everyone, and you can take it as an individual assignment.
All right, so you just send
Will that be fine?
Yeah, that will be fine.
Okay, done. So when we take a break, that is after 40 minutes when it goes off, that 5 minutes I will share it with all. Right? So now let's get on with, everybody can see category attractiveness analysis. Nice. Right. Now let's just go through this. You know, the attractiveness of every market for every product may not be equal. For example, if I talk about a high-end car, the number of cars sold in India for, let's say, the BMW series or the Mercedes series or the Lamborghini, the total number may not be 20,000 plus, or maybe just about 20,000 plus. While the same thing, if you talk about the United States, the number should be about 1 million plus. Now, does that make India a less attractive market? The answer is yes and no. It is a less attractive market in sheer numbers, but at the end of it, the amount of profit the company can make in India is high, because we all know most of the the German cars are made in Pune, which means the per cost car is much lesser than manufacturing it in US or in a high cost market. So the point here is that attractiveness will have several indicators. And depending on whether the market is suitably attractive, you go in or you don't go in. Yeah. Again, I'm going back to SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is also a measure of market attractiveness. Now, why I'm saying SWOT analysis is so important, I'm stopping the video, friends, because I believe internet is taking a so, market attractiveness, if you say SWOT, that is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, the O in the SWOT, that is opportunities, is also one of the indicators of market attractiveness. Now, I'm sure we have already gone through a discussion about American companies going abroad. That is the reason why we had SWOT in the first place. So when they go out, and if you go out of America, it is imperative that the market has to be attractive enough for them to come. For example, I'm sure you know that India attracts a lot of FDI, almost say 30. Yeah. Now, my point is, just a question, where do about $20 to $22 billion go? Which field? Any idea?
The production and labor, I think so. I'm not sure.
Okay, labor. No, what I'm trying to say, which field or which industry do they, invest? Especially the Americans and Europeans.
This services, sir. Software.
Something. Software. Software. Americans start software companies in India. Good. Coronavirus. Financial services. Now, I want you to break down the financial services into one word or two words. Can I say that the majority of money or FDI in India goes to this place? Stock market. And the reason is because the Indian stock market on an average gives about 17 to 20% returns compared to about 5 to 7% in the American market. That is the reason why people are in the stock market. Whatever, FPI, I'm giving a very, maybe a wrong definition, but yeah, FDI is also one. And I'm sure you know that the country which invests the maximum in India is a country from Africa known as Mauritius. Any idea why? Until very recently, I'm using the word very carefully, until very recently, money in the market came from Mauritius. Any idea why? The reason is, chalo, let me tell you, the reason is, yeah, money laundering, roundabouting of funds. To be very honest, that is one way of doing it. The second thing which happens is because Mauritius and India have a treaty. And the treaty is that if you pay capital gains tax in one country, you do not have to pay capital gains tax in another country. So most of the American companies who come to India or the European companies, and everybody wants certificate to that yes, we are paying our capital gains tax as per Mauritius rules. And Mauritius, after that, Indian government made some investigation and they found out why is it that nobody gives money to India and everybody gives money to Mauritius. So they went about finding it out, and the results was not very surprising. Mauritius does not have capital gains tax. And that is the reason why Mauritius or every company says, we pay as per Mauritius rules. That means you earn money in the Indian stock market and you don't pay even 1 rupee as tax. So this is what had happened with Indo-Mauritius Treaty. Now, of course, India has pushed Mauritius to make some 10% as the cost of or the capital gains tax. So what has happened is most money have just left Mauritius, and I'm sure you know where it has gone to. It has gone to another country which is Singapore. Why Mauritius? Because capital gains tax is 0. So if I make, let's say, if I invest $1 million in the Indian stock market, and I make $1.5 million, on the $500,000 in India you have to pay 15% tax, while in Mauritius you pay 0 tax. So your entire $1.5 million is with you, and it is legal. So now what has happened is Mauritius has started levying capital gains tax at 10%, which means almost 5% below India's rates. So many of the companies find it very difficult. So what they have done, they have just shifted their operations to Singapore. Why Singapore? Singapore has got a capital gains tax flat of 5%. So most of the amount or FDI for our stock market is now, last few months, is coming from Singapore. Okay, now second, why do you list your company in Singapore? The reason is Singapore is a free market. And because it is a free market, the rules are very transparent. You know why India is scoring very low in ease of doing business? It is because our rules are not transparent at all. Even you and me don't know how many things are required to start a factory in India. So that is one of the reasons why we do not attract a lot of FDI in services or otherwise. So let's cut that off. Let's get on with market attractiveness. So this is market attractiveness indicators: market size, market growth, the cyclicity of sales, seasonality of sales, profit level, profit variability, and so on and so forth. Now, this is a very familiar PLC which you have gone through in your marketing and many others. So what is a PLC, product life cycle, and what it basically is trying to indicate in this product life cycle is that every product goes through these four things, four stages: introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. So time is a great leveler. So when I talk about attractiveness, when is a product or the investments attractive? Is it during introduction, growth, maturity, or decline? Have you heard about something known as venture capitalists?
Yes.
Any idea what is a venture capitalist? I mean, who are they?
They take a part of
Okay.
the equity and they offer funds support and they exit the investment later on.
Exactly. So they take some equity and they give money to you, which means that suppose if you have an idea, see, you are young people with a lot of ideas, lot of business ideas. In fact, I'd love it if you start your company. Many of your seniors and super seniors have started. So if you start a company, and obviously many of you may not have enough capital to start. Of course, I'm not talking about the class of Pumbaa, but otherwise. So when a young person wants to start and he or she doesn't have enough money to start, what does she do? Or what does he do? One, we approach Tiger. What is Tiger Global? Okay. Yes, you approach Tiger. In fact, before you approach Tiger Global, you approach your father. You know, he's always an ATM, right?
You will need to find an angel investor.
Yeah, and the angel investor can be your father.
Yes.
Smiling? Okay, don't smile. You know, many times fathers are people who invest. For example, if you look at this guy, Bill Gates. You know, poor guy. His father was a poor man. He just gave $1 million to his son. So he took that $1 million about 40 years back, and today he's got money which is slightly more than $1 million. So father. So that is one way in which you take it. Father, relatives, friends, whoever gives money becomes friends, whatever, I mean, and so on and so forth. So this is the first thing you do. Ask them. Now what happens if your relatives and friends are something like a poverty-stricken faculty like Pranav, which means that you have to look out for money. And that is where you have this venture capitalists. They are people who will take some equity of your company, some percentage of your company, and give you some money. And the problem with venture capitalists is they are very, very inquisitive about what is happening with your company, because it's their money after all. So they will be almost sometimes, many people complain that sometimes they actually micromanage. What is the product? How you're doing? Kya growth ho raha hai, kya nahi, and so on. So the attractiveness of the company becomes very high for the venture capitalists when it is in the growth phase. The reason being, this is the phase when a company begins to attract the attention of other venture capitalists. I am sure you have heard about a term known as unicorn companies. Like, for example, very recently,
Yes, sir.
Byju's have become a unicorn. Unicorn is a company whose market value is $1 billion plus. So if your market value becomes $1 billion, you become a unicorn. So the point is, to become a unicorn, you should be attractive to the other venture capitalists. So over a period of time, other capitalists would come and invest in your company at a cost which is much higher than the initial investment. So this is the time when either the original investor, maybe Tiger Global or X or Y, sells out, or he also starts investing more at a higher valuation. So the growth period is when everybody is looking at you. Then comes the maturity. Now remember, these companies like Tiger Global or others have invested, let's say, $1 billion, let's say $200 million. Yeah. Series funding, A, B, C, whatever. Maybe $1 billion, and your company now is worth about, let's say, $500 million. What is the next phase? How do you make money in this kind of a situation? Where is the money?
Well, money would be in the maturity phase, sir.
I know. Where is the money? How does the company, the investors make money? They make money
By exiting.
by one of the most important ways. The investors has invested in a company. Is my screen paused? Hello, are you okay?
Yes, sir.
Feasible, sir.
Okay, done. Thank you very much. So what I'm trying to say is, when you go in for an IPO, the IPO means what? IPO means I go to the public and tell the public, look here, Flipkart is a great company. We have been in business for 3 years, and we would like to the public of the country to invest. So this is the time. You know what is the benefits of an IPO? Your company's net worth goes many times higher than your sales. So if your IPO is of, let's say, $10 billion, which means the $200 billion, or why 10 billion? $1 billion, which means the $200 million or $300 million is suddenly worth $1 billion. And this is the time when the investors sell out. So maturity is when it can be low and high. High if the market perceives the company's share to be higher. If you have got a share, you have got money at the rate of, let's say, 50 rupees a share, and the market says, hey, I'm sure I'll buy it at 450 rupees. Then the investors make even higher money. Hey, some kid is in the background. Has he or she paid the fees? Right? So this is what I'm trying to say, that at the maturity phase, at the IPO phase, the interest can be very high or can be very low. If suppose after the IPO, most investors generally cash out, because that is the time when you get 5 times your money invested and you go out. So this is where your category attractiveness is. So these are some of the things which are the factors in a category. Threat of new entrants. Have you gone through Porter's 5 forces this one model?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Great. So in Porter's 5 forces, the most important thing you have is industry rivalry. Okay. So can a company's worth even reduce after IPO? Yes. Yes. Do you want a joke? Are you keen for a joke? Yeah? Good. So the joke goes something like this. Reliance Industries had a reputation which said that if you invest in Reliance, you will never lose money. So if you invest 100 rupees in Reliance, maybe if the work atmosphere or the business environment is not so good, you will still make 1 rupee. So when you cash out, you will have 101 rupee. Of course, if the environment is good, you can make 200 rupees. So the buzz in the market was, if you invest in Reliance, you always get a positive money. I think these companies are known as Big Blue. It's known as blue companies. In America, they are classified as blue companies. That is, you never miss out or you never lose money in this company. And the bluest of the blue is a company known as IBM. One of the titles given to it is Big Blue, because if you invest in IBM, you never make a loss. Yeah, and also the blue chip stocks and so on. Now, Reliance was the bluest of the blue in India. And as Prasad Nair says, the experience of our power is there for all of us to see. Now, do you want me to talk about our power? And why is it that it's a case study we should know as management students? The case study is something like this. After the Reliance Industries was distributed between the two sisters-in-law, we had a fight for many things. Okay, so the younger brother, the market has already put in Mukesh Ambani as somebody very serious and Anil Ambani as somebody not so serious. So what Anil Ambani did was, he made a huge hullabulla that, look here, I am also the son of Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani. So his entire group, he made it as Anil Dhirubhai Ambani Group, ADAG. And he spent about 200 crores telling it to all. Every day we had TV ads, we had paper ads saying that ADAG is the future. And once ADAG was in each other's mind, he came in with the highest IPO of India at the time. He went in for a company known as Reliance Power. And meeting ends in 2 minutes, so what do we do? Shall we close right now? Because I will need about 5 to 6 minutes. Okay. Chalo, let's meet in about 5 minutes. Anil Ambani was invited by the BSE to come and start the trading. So he came, I mean, we could see on TV, he came and he rang the bell. So the share market started. In the first 5 minutes, the 400 rupees share went up to 558 rupees. Everybody said, wow, abhi to 1000 jayega. After 5 minutes, it came to 30 rupees. And from 2006-7 up to 2020, the share has never seen 100 rupees. If you go to the share market now and see what is the price of Reliance Power, you'll be surprised. 1 rupee 50 paisa? That's what I said, 1 rupee 50 paisa. So the point I'm trying to make here is that it is now who made the money? Chalo, now let me put it this way. Who made the money? No, intraday, whatever, but who made the money? Reliance Power from 400 rupee, it is now crashed to, means on the same day it crashed to 30. Who made the money? Stockbrokers, short sellers? Seriously, 5 minutes you sell? If I say Anil Ambani, because remember, if you get 9,000 crores and suddenly your share prices drops down, Mukesh Ambani has already got the money. And when you actually sell the shares, you don't sell at 400, you sell it at 30. So even if you make 400 rupees per share and you sell at 30, every share you are making 400 rupees plus. So this is what happened. After that, I mean, after this incident, I'm sure it was not planned. I mean, poor Anil Ambani, I don't know, his luck is not so good because whatever he has done is failed. Then after Reliance Power, you had Reliance Telecom, and then poor guy, he was supposed to make some parts for the Rafael. That also went through, I mean, I don't know, poor guy is now bankrupt. I think somebody has declared him bankrupt. So that is how the story is. I have a lot of, what do you say, sympathy for him. Because poor guy, as we used to have a comics in our childhood, the poor little rich boy, the rich. So he's a poor little rich businessman. Anyway, that is what I thought is there, and this is a story we need to know because the five forces theory, yeah, Porter's five forces theory is actually a theory which talks about how industry rivalry can kill a business. Ah, okay, nice. Now that's a beautiful, beautiful question I have from Adnan. And the question is, what made the stock fall? Coronavirus, you are absolutely correct. The lack of fundamentals. There was nothing which was there in our power except the name Reliance. And they were all, or he was actually encashing the name Dhirubhai Ambani. So he made the company Anil Dhirubhai Ambani Group. It's a marketing case study. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So when we come to Porter's five forces theory, one second. We can hear you but not see your screen. Okay, one second, give me a minute. Okay, now? All right. Now, so when you talk about Porter's five forces theory, I want you to know a little bit more about it. I'm sure in some way or the other you have already done it. The five forces which Porter says affects a business is one, the center point is business rivalry within your business. Then you have threat of new entrants, threat of substitutes, threat of suppliers, and threat of buyers. Yeah. So what is the threat from the buyers? The bargaining power. If the category rivalry is very high, then the buyers can get a lot of bargaining power. For example, something like telecom. If Vodafone wants to take market share, it gives you data of 2 GB every day for 1 month at 200 rupees. So because of that, Jio also has to come up to that level, Airtel has to come to that level, and even everybody, even BSNL has to come to that level. Now, what I'm trying to say is, if the rivalry is huge, like in the telecom industry, the buyers have a huge power. Yeah. If the rivalry is huge, the suppliers have a huge power. How? Because if your suppliers know that there is a fight between all three, and if I am a telecom supplier, I will directly say, hey, my product is worth this. It is going to increase your internet power twice. But I will give it to the person who gives me the highest money. So they start bidding on who will buy this technology and so on. So the bargaining power of suppliers is high if the category rivalry is high. Then comes new entrants. Now, new entrants, I mean, are you familiar about the history of five forces?
No, sir.
Yeah, you've already gone through it, right?
We have gone through it, but we don't know how it was created or formulated.
Why do you want me to get scared? Anyway, what do you want to know about it? Because this is a slightly long explanation. It should take 10 odd minutes. Again, I can hear the background. I still don't know whether they have paid the fees. Whose kids are there? Okay, now let's talk about it. Definitely not you. I understand. Okay, so coronavirus is very clear. It is not his. I hope coronavirus is a he. I'm so sorry. I don't know because the name coronavirus does not tell me whether it's a she or a he. So I guess it's a he. I mean, do correct me. Yeah. So coming back to all of you friends, my point here is, have you heard about the first oil shock? कभी सुना है in the 1970s? No.
Yes, sir.
The first, you've heard of it, and can you tell me what it is?
Sir, it was in the
Anybody can tell me what is the first?
it was in the Middle East, sir. Um,
Uh,
so the oil prices skyrocketed due to inflation or so-called. I don't know everything, sir, but I'd read it somewhere. I don't remember it that well.
correct. Actually, what had happened is because of the Middle East and the relation between the Middle East countries and America deteriorated. And what Middle East did was they increased the price of oil 3 times overnight. Now remember, if the price of oil goes up, the countries which get affected are the countries which has got the maximum number of cars. Because see, every president wants some political thing here. So if the price of petrol goes up, then the people will face a lot of problems because of this. So the American people were happy. So cars were and for Americans, the cars were huge things, and they always counted gallons to the mile. Oh, sorry, other way around, miles to the gallon. Now, Americans do not know what is the meaning of liter. It is only poor countries like us know the meaning of liter. In fact, one joke is, one advertisement was the one guy on. Okay, got it. So the thing is, we are obsessed with mileage. And the reason why we are all obsessed with mileage is because we are a poor country and we have to get the maximum mileage out of the car. Am I audible now? Okay, great. Mileage chahiye, correct. In fact, the joke which I was saying is that one Indian buys a very fancy yacht, and then he asks the agents, "Kitna deti hai?" So even the yacht might costing about $5 million, but every Indian is still worried about what is the mileage given by a ship. So anyway, that is how it is. So now Americans don't know that. They only know miles to the gallon. Now, suddenly, because of this hike in prices, we have a situation where the Americans had to pay a huge amount of money for the fuel. And the American government that time opened up the country's automobile industry for other companies or for other countries. And the country which took advantage of it, or the first country which took advantage of it, was Japan. So Japan in the early 70s, the Hondas, Toyotas, they just took over the American market with only one kind of a USP, mileage. Now, we all know that America's industry is on wheels. So three major industries or three major companies were General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. So all these three companies, they said, we are failing against the Japanese. What do we do? So they went to Harvard Business School. They found one professor wearing specs. I mean, I don't know, wearing specs is good. And his name was Michael Porter. And he said, can you help us? So Michael Porter says, yes, I can help you. So Michael Porter came up with a model. And since he was a very humble man, he named it as Porter's 5 forces model. And he sold it to all the three companies. And the 5 forces model said, category rivalry, suppliers, buyers, new entrants, and substitutes. So in this case, he says, 1, do you have a threat of new entrants? The answer is a bold yes, because after the Japanese, maybe the other countries will come and give maybe the South Koreans will come and so on and so forth. So they said, okay, that threat is available. Second, is there a threat from a substitute? The answer is a big no. Americans still love cars, not like a scooter or bus or whatever. So are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah? Good. So the buyers will have power and the suppliers also had power. So what did Porter say is that for a Japanese to sell in America, they have to make the Honda car in Japan, put it on a ship, bring it to Los Angeles and get it down and then give it to the dealers. It's a huge logistics. Suppliers are just next door. So you can actually talk about your suppliers. As far as the buyers go, you have to convince them to buy American. But the place where you can win is in category rivalry. They said, let us not have an American car fighting against an American car against the Japanese. So from then, I think you might have noticed or otherwise, if you have a comparative advertisement of, let's say, General Motors, they will never compare themselves with Ford or Chrysler. They will compare themselves with Volkswagen, with Honda, Hyundai, and others. Which means Americans will not compete against Americans in America or anywhere else. They will always compete against others. So if you have an advertisement of Ford, you will never find them categorized, or they will never find them giving specs against General Motors. They will always give against Honda, Toyota, Hyundai, Volkswagen, or others. So because of this, because category rivalry was zero, the American big three were able to take back their market share. And we know in the late 70s, to the mid or even end of the 80s, the largest corporation in the world was General Motors. So the 5 forces model was meant to help the American car manufacturers fight the Japanese invasion. Am I clear? Is it fine? Okay, so I get it that most of you have heard what I've tried to say. So this is what is the history behind the five forces model. Now we come to something which is slightly more, I would say, dated. That is slightly, it's beyond 70s. Yeah. Now SWOT is 60s. Porter's five forces is 70s. Then we come to something which is more modern, which is PEST. Now, what is PEST or PESTL or whatever you call it as? PEST analysis is basically talking about things which are previously not related, but now it is related. For example, in America, even today, politics is not a big thing. In most of Western Europe, politics is not a big thing. The reason being, if you look at the American mercantile law or the trade law from 1800 up to 2020 is the same. Which means that if I am a businessman, I have complete idea about what to expect if I do business in UK. The trade law of America is more or less constant for 200 years, which means if I start a company in America, I know what the laws are and I do not have to worry for another that the laws will be changed. In India, very unfortunately, our laws keep changing on a whim, and it can also be political. That is, if the political dispensation right. So it is feasible and possible that political expediencies will be more important than the economic requirements. So that is the reason why a modern model talks about political, regulatory, social as important requirements for economics. In an ideal world, economics and politics should be separated. Since we are not in an ideal world, economics and political are intertwined in some countries very violently. In others, friends, I'm sorry, the connection is very, very weak. Okay, anyway, so politics and economics are related. In America also it is related. For example, right now many of the Americans are facing problems because of coronavirus. So what did Trump do? He signed a check of $2 trillion. This is going to give $1,200 to every American, irrespective of his or her social standing, in their bank account. If you do not have a bank account, then what the IRS is doing now is printing checks. And that also, it will be a regular check. It will not be a cross check because you don't have a bank account. So people with bank account will get $1,200 per month of lockdown in their bank account. People who do not have a bank account will be given a bearer check, which they can go to any bank and encash it during the lockdown per month. And this is costing $2 trillion, and he has already signed it. Second, what about the small companies? They said we also need money. So he has signed $359 billion for small companies to get their work done during the lockdown. Third, many companies felt $359 billion is very low. So I think yesterday or day before yesterday, he has signed another check of $1.7 trillion, which means for small businesses, Trump is going to give $2 trillion. So $2 trillion for the common man, $2 trillion for small businesses to run, and then comes the big business. They said, "Hamara kya hoga?" So I believe he will give about $1 trillion for the big business also. So effectively what America is doing is 25% of its GDP, it is giving back because of the coronavirus. Of course, it's a different matter. In India, we are a poor country, so we are giving about 1.5%. That's a different issue. So my point here is politics and economics are highly intertwined in some countries, and they are not so much intertwined in other countries, right? So environmental factors is very, very important. We have to understand that. Now, I'm sure all of you have gone through pest analysis. So you see, the coronavirus has just given a great thing. I have not read it. Maybe it must be last night. So Fed is seizing control of the entire US bond market, which means, of course, if you want a funny side of it, would you want to know about it? Oh yeah, got it. I'm with you on this. I'm with you on this. And I know that another $4 trillion has already been issued, and for the big companies, maybe another $1 trillion. Because many airlines are failing and they are giving money. And not only that, what I'm trying to say is the joke here is when you say bond market, what the American government does is it buys the shares of the company in return for the money. Now, after 2008, Lehman Brothers, when everything settled down, it was a very sad day for the American government, because after the dust settled down, the owner of Citibank was the American government, and the owner of General Motors was the American government. And the worst part is American government didn't like it. So once they had actually spent, I think, about $300 billion. Once things settled down, yes, if feasible, or because it is Saturday and you have some other plans, we can end it here. You tell me. Let the class decide. If you want one more meeting, I'm good. No? Fair enough. Yeah. So, I need, do you have a class ID, or Adnan, can you give me your personal ID? Or do you want me to write?